If you've attended a Monday session already, you've been introduced to the 3 stages of financial wellness. If this is not familiar to you, make plans to join an Intro to Money Nav session, which is offered the first Monday of every month. You can also view our Money Milestones course, which takes a deep dive into each of the financial stages. This session, DeClutter, is a core course appropriate for anyone in any stage. Okay, so let's get started. While the world becomes more paperless, there are still filing cabinets out there overflowing with paper documents. And while we all have preferences and habits, we do recommend transitioning to a digital file system, even if only as a backup for your paper files. If you're currently a paper filer, this presentation will outline the documents you should scan and save in digital form. For the digital filers out there, this presentation should help you set up and organize your folders. When storing documents, ask yourself, how would I recover files if I had a flood or a fire or simply lost track of an important document? Having a digital backup can be invaluable. But what if your computer crashed? Make sure your digital files are also backed up to, for example, a cloud-based storage system. Are your files organized in a way that makes it easy for you to find what you need? Being able to search for information is essential, whether the documents are in digital or paper form. Also, in the event of your death or disability, your loved ones may need to find important documents and access information. So being organized is good for you, but it's also good for others. Do you have enough storage space for your documents? If your paper file storage is overflowing and you clean out old documents, just be sure to take special care to destroy anything that contains personal information. Storage space is less of an issue with digital files, but there are generally limits on cloud storage space that you'll want to keep in mind. While keeping information secure is top of mind these days, it's also important to have at least one person who knows where you keep those important documents. This is an exercise that's important across generations too. If your parents are living, ask where they keep their important documents. If you're single, be sure you share this information with someone you trust. Okay, so with our file structure in mind, let's talk about which documents you should be keeping and for how long. Let's cover homeownership documents first. You should retain settlement sheets from your initial purchase and any subsequent refinances. Buying and selling a house is a taxable transaction and it's reportable on your tax return. So you'll need to reference these documents in the year of any transaction and also need them to prove your cost basis when you sell your property. So keeping track of cost basis is important and can save you tax dollars. Refinancing includes costs that increase your cost basis, and so keeping good records ensures you don't have to pay more tax than is necessary. The title and deed are usually retained by the lender while the property is under mortgage. They'll be given to you when you pay off the mortgage, but you can request copies of these documents at any time. Keep records of all home improvements. Like refi costs, home improvements increase your cost basis or investment in your home. So keeping track of what you've spent to improve your property could save you taxes when you sell. Keep a list of improvements, dates, and costs. You don't need to track repairs and maintenance, however. Currently, the tax law allows individuals to exclude up to $250,000 of gain from taxation and $500,000 for married couples. So keeping track of cost basis is especially important for higher value properties or those owned for a long time. When it comes to homeowners insurance policies, save your current one. Also, maintain an inventory of valuable assets in your home, like art and antiques. You can ask your insurance carrier for a checklist you can use for this purpose. Finally, when you pay off your mortgage, be sure to keep any files from the lender that show proof that the mortgage has been paid. Okay, now let's tackle tax documents and records. Arguably the most important items to hold on to. You should save your returns for 7 to 10 years. Although you'll see recommendations for as little as 3 years, most CPAs we work with recommend a 7-year retention. Or since digital records are easy to store, you might want to keep them forever. A few years ago, while helping my grandparents move, we found tax records from the early years of their marriage, and I'll say it was pretty fun to take a look back and see how they got by on so very little. You should retain your federal, state, and local returns, as well as the records you use to prepare those returns. That includes things like your W-2s and 1099s. What about investment and bank statements? If you're lucky enough to still get paper statements, your mailbox is probably complaining. Many companies no longer send paper statements, however, unless you ask for them, which can actually make it easy to lose track of what you have, and next to impossible for someone else to figure out what you have in your absence or disability. For this reason, one of the most important documents you can maintain is a list of financial accounts. Make a record of investments, bank accounts, mortgages, credit cards, etc. Set a reminder for yourself to update this list at least annually. Tax time is a good time for that. This list also makes it easy to ensure that you have tax documents you need to prepare your tax return each year. So on that financial accounts list, indicate which documents receive an annual tax form that needs to be provided for your tax preparer. While the statements for most accounts can be retrieved online, I like to keep year-end and most current statements in my records. When a new statement arrives, I delete the old one except for year-end statements, which I like to keep. I like to look back on old statements. It helps me view my progress over time. When you transfer or close an account, make sure you indicate that in your files. This helps you, but really helps a loved one in the event that they need to understand your financial account situation. In a digital file system, I simply change the name of the file folder to include the word closed or transferred. Finally, if you inherit accounts, keep records associated with the account you inherited. Some assets require cost basis accounting, and having these records will help your financial professional ensure the tax accounting is accurate. There are some documents you should retain indefinitely. These include your legal and estate documents, insurance policies, but when it comes to insurance policies, keep only your current policy. This avoids confusion. One of the common wild goose chases we find ourselves on is tracking down copies of old life insurance policies to determine whether or not they're still in place when somebody passes away. If you have physical stock or bond certificates, consider depositing them in a brokerage account for safekeeping. If a physical certificate is lost or destroyed, it's very difficult to recover the value. Also, if you're eligible for a pension benefit, keep documentation of the benefit and how to go about applying for it. If you've already applied, hold on to your election forms. You'll want to keep marriage and divorce documents, which you may need to reference or supply copies of when you're applying for Social Security. Also, hang on to custody agreements, birth certificates, and adoption papers. These are documents you might want to keep in both hard copy, original form, as well as digital. We haven't covered all documents, and that's because some things you don't need to keep, including bills for things like utilities, internet service, and cell phones. You might want to also consider signing up for online accounts and set up autopay. This is good for your files, but also good for your credit score. If you still get a paper pay stub, no need to file it. Be sure to check it from time to time to make sure your 401k contributions and other withholdings are correct, and then you can just destroy them. In our Start Smart and Dollars and Cents workshops, we talk in depth about creating a spending plan or a budget. And a great way to do that is to save your receipts for a month or two at a time. But once you've tallied that spending up and documented it in your spending plan, there's no need to hold on to your receipts. Owner's manuals are also taking up precious space in kitchen cabinets all over the country, but there's no need to hold on to them. These days you can find most of your owner's manuals online. There's also no need to hold on to expired items like credit cards, driver's licenses, passports, etc. Be sure to destroy these items when you discard them, though. But you might want to think twice before you get rid of keepsake items. For example, I still have my college ID just to prove to my kids that I was young once too. A few tips for document destruction before we move on. If you don't have a shredder, check with your local UPS or copier store. They often have shredding services. And if you're getting a new computer, be sure to do a factory reset of the hard drive after you've backed everything up and checked your backup. This is the digital equivalent of document shredding. If you aren't sure how to do this, check with places like Best Buy's Geek Squad. Let's take a minute to talk about best practices for keeping digital files secure. Get the proper storage. Some are free, some come at a cost, but be sure there are data security systems in place to protect your information. You might want to stick with major brands that are most likely to still be around 50 years from now. Google Drive, Dropbox, and Apple iCloud are some common examples. A scanner is a great thing to have on hand too. This makes it easy to create digital versions of any paper document that you need to back up. If you don't have a scanner, you can use your phone. Encrypt folders and documents, and also encrypt emails if you're attaching those documents to a message. To find out how to encrypt a file or email, just Google "How do I encrypt?" It's generally straightforward, but does vary from PCs and Macs, and also dependent on the program you're using. There are some things that should be kept in original hard copy form. Those items are best retained in a fireproof lockbox to keep them safe from fire, flood, and theft. Finally, it's impossible to overemphasize the importance of protecting your online accounts. Use strong passwords, and whenever possible, add two-factor authentication, which is the process that sends a code to your phone anytime you attempt to log in. Also, avoid keeping a written list of passwords or a document called passwords saved on your desktop. Better to use a password manager like LastPass. Password managers have a master password, and then all of your site credentials are stored inside. They're also great tools for helping others. Think less tech-savvy parents, go digital. Last but not least, consolidate accounts whenever possible. If you have 5 accounts out there from previous employers, that's 5 more places that a hacker, a cyber criminal, could access your information. So consolidating accounts is good for safety as well as simplicity. Let's wrap up our session with a brief discussion about how to help your next of kin respond in the event of an emergency. No matter what your age, it's a good idea to have someone who knows where all your stuff is. Include a list of important points of contact, like your accountant, attorney, financial advisor, etc. Be sure to identify the location of important documents. If you're not able to handle your finances, be sure you have a system in place for someone else to step in. A financial power of attorney is a legal document that allows someone to manage your financial affairs in the event that you're disabled. An executor is a person appointed in your last will and testament who can settle your financial affairs in the event of your death. Make sure anyone you name in your estate documents has a copy of those documents, and also consider providing a copy to your financial advisor, especially your power of attorney. Finally, be sure to understand what is and what is not handled by your will. Beneficiary designations for accounts like 401ks and IRAs and life insurance supersede instructions in your last will and testament. Your will gives instructions for the disposition of assets that do not have a beneficiary, things like personal property, bank accounts, etc. For more information on estate planning, check out the Estate Planning Basics workshop. Then just keep taking the best next step.